Well, joining me now is an economist, Hardin Udo. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast. Now, it's just a little over 20 days, and the prices of food items and some other things have shot up in some areas. When you look at this critically as an economist, is this decision by the government really beneficial economically?
Yeah, well, in my opinion, when policy is passed, you usually will have an upside and downside to it. In this case, the government is trying to curb certain elements, which predominantly verges on smuggling. And smuggling activities are crippling to the economy at any time. In the past 20 days, like you just enumerated, we found out that the smuggling of petroleum products across the border has really declined. That's on the one hand. That's a positive. Now, on the negative, food prices on the same border towns are on the increase. There's always room for policy adjustments. Now, the Ministry of Petroleum, Malam Kyari, has also confirmed that the amount of petroleum products that are being smuggled across has also been on the decline. That's revenue from the government.
But then beyond the borders, there are also illegal routes.
I agree, yeah. But you know, we're looking at how porous the Nigerian borders are as a whole. Now, manning them as it is a step in the positive direction, because we've been clamoring for this as a people for a long time. Now, also, when you look at these food items that are on the increase, especially on the border towns, you find out that a number of them are still coming through the borders illegally. We have the likes of chicken, turkey, and rice. These are things that are produced locally. So there's a plus for it, and there's a negative. The negative is what we've seen in terms of the hard economic impact on the border towns. And I believe that strongly that the policy makers are watching this as feedback. So
if there has to be a policy adjustment,
yes,
what areas would you be looking at?
Well, for me, I will recommend that we should have quota systems in place, tariffs in place. When we're looking at tariffs
and all that. Don't we have that already?
Yeah, well, we do. We need to increase them, especially on the imports of things, goods like products like chicken, like turkey, yeah? And then we also want to export concessions. When we're saying export concessions, I'm looking at such products like the oil products. It's clear that there's a market across the country.
Absolutely.
But do we have to smuggle the products across the country? So we want to have a sit-down with all concerned parties, probably the governments of other countries as well. We're looking at the Nigerian Republic, we're looking at Benin Republic. We're saying who are the suppliers who are licensed to actually pick up products from Nigeria and sell legitimately so as not to impact government revenue in a negative way.
When we make increases, don't you think that it will encourage smuggling, so to speak?
No, you know, in a controlled environment, a very controlled environment, the problem now is that most
our environment control?
It's environmental control. They're not in place. And that's why I think government is playing the hard line. Shut down the borders. Let us even see where these products are going to, where they are coming from. I think it's a step in the positive direction in the sense that once you now know it's verified, and then we can now apply the necessary measures to curb them. Take chicken, for instance. Since the land borders have been closed, we hear that people are now smuggling them into the country through canoes. The forces, the armed forces or the joint task forces are now also trying to use helicopters and all that to increase surveillance, because people will always want to find a way across it. The smuggling is harming the economy, and it's been doing that for a very long time. Yes.
All right, Hardin Udo, thank you for your time on TVC Breakfast.
You're welcome.
Joining me now is an economist, Hardin Udo. Hardin, good morning. It's nice to see you, really.
Same here, Mike.
Welcome.
Thank you,
now, a lot of people have voiced out differently regarding the partial or the closure of the Nigerian borders roundabout. Some people say it's hurting the economy and little businesses here and there. But others say it's a good development because it's going to give room and opportunity for local industries to grow.
Sure.
What is your take on this generally?
Well, I'll say I'll sit on the fence.
Oh, okay.
Because truly, the policy is on the one hand beneficial, and on the other hand, it's hurtful. So it depends on what aspect you're looking at it. Now, let's look at the negative side of it, and which is the border towns that are actually crying out at this time. Now, the average distance that you probably travel between a major Nigerian city capital to the border town could be in excess of 6 hours or even a day at times. Some of them are accessible by road and all of that. And so you find out that these communities are surviving on their own economy based on trade between Nigeria and other countries. Chad, for instance, Niger Republic, for instance, Cameroon,
Benin Republic,
yeah,
and all
you know,
that, yeah.
some of these border towns are not as expansive as the well-known semi-borders. You understand? So the social amenities that you and I, Mike, are used to in Lagos, you will not find it there.
Okay.
No pipe-bomb water, no good road, no access to roads, no access to good medical facilities, and all of those things. And so,
so that little economic activity of trade between them and the next community in the next country
is what they depend.
Wow.
That's
so closing the border goes a long way to cut that, that line.
Yes.
But what can the government do? How helpless is the government in this case? Because the directive is for the economy.
Yes. Now, you know, the government has a lot on its plate to wrestle with. You have the balance of trade, balance of payments, and all of those issues, security issues, and all of that. Now, if you notice, it's a joint task force. It's not as if these borders were not manned before now, but clearly there have been leakages, humongous leakages. One of the major ones is oil, petrol. You know, on the one hand, the government is forced to pay subsidy because we're importing. And then on the other hand, you're saying we utilize about 6 million liters per day. 60, sorry, million liters per day. And
which is very disputable.
Which is disputable because already statistics are out. You know, I remember Bismarck Rawane at a breakfast meeting at the LBS actually stated and saying that, listen, pump price is coming down. We found out that this 60 million liters is not what it's supposed to be. A part of it is actually being smuggled across. Now, there was a man manning the borders at the time. So,
in fact, the NNPC has said that the smuggling of oil across the borders have drastically reduced.
Not only that, in the depots themselves, the statistics of oil being pumped into trailers and sent out has actually dropped. So it means that there's been a lot of cross-border trading, which will boil down to smuggling. And so,
but beyond the borders, the borders that are acceptable, that are manned, we still have so many porous. In fact, people talk about Nigeria having porous borders is becoming a cliche now, as the case be. But how does that compound the issue? Because if you close the known and the legal channels, and then there are leakages everywhere, how does that help?
It's going to have to be the responsibility of the security operatives, and that's already what we're seeing. You've shut down semi-borders because you don't want rice and chicken and the likes of Turkey to come in, but people are actually now using the waterways, and the waterways are not being manned. So I want to believe that the security operatives are seeing these new trends, and hopefully with the aid of technology, they're able to curb this thing.
All right, let's focus on the local industries now that have been crying out. How can they take advantage of this closure?
Oh, a lot of them are already clapping for the government. For instance, the Rice Millers Associations, they believe it's a move in the positive direction. You know, question is, how sustainable are their stock?
On the other hand, there's a talk about them not being able to meet the demand.
True. And that's coming from importers across the semi-borders. That, they're looking for this local produce, but it's not accessible. So again, this 28-day period or window that the government says will enable, I believe, the policymakers to actually sit down and say, one nation cannot produce everything. And Nigeria is a populous nation. So we can't overnight just stop the importation of food stuff.
It has to be gradual.
It has to be gradual.
All right. Thank you very much, Hardin Udo, for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.